All right, we're back at it. Another episode. Excited for this one because all of this shit has happened kind of fast. And, like, bro, your body of work is insane. So let me try to give this a crack with my notes. Phillip Leeds, a New York City born photographer and entertainment industry veteran, renowned for his candid Polaroid portraits that capture the essence of hip hop, music, and fashion icons. His work offers an intimate glimpse into the lives of influential figures, preserving moments that define contemporary culture. I'm not fucking done, but that was pretty good. In 2017, Leeds released Big Shots Volume 1, a compilation of over 250 Polaroid photographs featuring artists such as Mos Def, Jay-Z, Tyler the Creator, Questlove, and Rita Ora. This collection, published by Rizzoli, showcases the dynamic energy of the late 1990s through the present, providing a unique visual record of hip hop and fashion industry. I got more. You want to keep going? This shit is impressive.
Let's just fact check that real quick because there's a couple errors.
There's errors. Okay, grammatical. No, there's
No,
chronological
not
errors.
you. It's your assistants. Most deaths not in the book.
Most Def's not in the book.
The Polaroid portrait started in 2004, so there are some epic people from the 80s and 90s in the book. Everything was shot post 2004, so I didn't capture a lot of 90s essence except those cats later.
I appreciate that he's like correcting me. He's like, don't give me credit for some shit I didn't do.
Well,
Fair.
It's not you. It's not you.
It's not me. It's AI.
Right. It's what the internet says.
All right,
about
so let's keep going.
Keep going.
Let's keep going because I'm sure you're gonna try to correct me. You're gonna have to correct me, but I'm also kind of like ecstatic about saying that building up upon that success of his first volume, Leeds announced Big Shots Volume 2, set for the release, which released in summer of 24. And this edition features over 500 new Polaroid
Well,
portraits.
The first book had about 400 and something, so the 250 number was
Got you.
a little light.
Fair. On the cover, you got SZA. Global icon Pharrell. Collection includes Chris Rock, Scratch Perry, James Lipton, Cause, Dave Grohl, George Clinton, Sister Nancy, Q-Tip, Snoop, Ari Melber, John David Washington, Mike Ness. I'm going to butcher this name. Ndaba Mandela, Megan Thee Stallion, Swiss Beats, Alicia Keys, and a couple other people.
Yep.
Did we get that part right?
All them people.
So many questions, right? But that is when I die, use this same service for my eulogy, all right?
Right? It makes you look good.
No,
It makes you sound good.
nah, but your work is impressive.
Thank you.
And I've been very fortunate to, hang out with you over these last couple days. You went with me to Seattle to SneakerCon. You've been hanging out with me here with the old man at Blitzstein's, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I got a couple questions for you, and then in between these questions, obviously, I want to kind of tap dance through all the other shit that we've been kind of going. So, what inspired you to start capturing portraits, and how did the idea for Big Shots even happen?
I've always liked taking pictures and started in high school with a Nikon, a FG, and black and white photography. I never really aspired to be an artist or like to make my living by art. I felt like I wasn't good enough for, I always drew and like wrote graffiti and painted and whatever. But I never was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna put all my effort into this and do this. And then in the 90s, kind of through my mom, I just started going to thrift stores and ended up buying Polaroid cameras, old Polaroid cameras.
You remember the first Polaroid camera?
I got a Polaroid 250 land camera that's like, it kind of folds up into a box and has billows when it comes out and takes, wide pictures.
Yeah.
Landscapes or whatever. And this is before digital cameras and phones and whatever. And so Polaroid was like the original instant gratification. Like you knew if you got a picture when you took it because you peeled that shit apart. And you saw what you got. And I really like that aspect of the Polaroid, of like seeing it immediately and not having to like go get your film developed and wait for the prints and whatever. And then fast forward to 2004, I went and saw this Andy Warhol exhibit, and Andy Warhol was like an obsessive photographer and was always taking pictures. And in 1971, Polaroid came out with this camera called a Big Shot, and they marketed it as like, this is the second camera you need. Everybody had a Polaroid camera. It was like at the time, everybody had a Polaroid. So they made this portrait camera, and they were like, this is the second camera you need so you can take a picture of your uncle at Christmas with his pipe and his holiday sweater or whatever. It was a flop for Polaroid. Nobody bought them, except Andy Warhol loved them and started going crazy with them. And Andy Warhol's Polaroids are like the basis of his big silk screens. So when Polaroid canceled them, Andy Warhol bought the remaining stock and had a bunch of them. And I went and saw this exhibit. He had a project called Red Books come out in '04. And I went and saw the show in New York, and at the end of the show, they had one of the Big Shot cameras in like a glass case on display or whatever. And I was like, that's the craziest looking Polaroid. And went home, got on eBay, bought one, and then from there on, I was just into taking the portraits.
Well, the size of this camera is probably the reason why the camera didn't work, like from a retail standpoint, right? It's clunky.
Yeah.
It looks like a toy.
It doesn't fold up. All the other Polaroids fold up, and they're like a little...
And you have to also buy additional stuff besides the actual film for it to even function.
It won't even take a picture without a flash cube.
So it's a great idea, just poorly executed, but takes amazing.
But flash cubes were kind of prevalent at the time.
Right.
So your other cameras used them too. But yeah, it was not, let's take the Big Shot with us.
So if it wasn't for you going to like Warhol and going down that rabbit hole.
And yeah, and then that became like I was traveling a lot at the time, so I didn't travel with it for the reasons we just talked about. But if you came by the house, I would take your Polaroid.
Yeah.
I started taking pictures of my friends. Some of the first portraits of celebrities was at my house in Brooklyn. Like the guys from NERD were at my house, and Pusher and I. Funny story about commandeering Pusher and going to Fulton Mall to get gold fronts, and the record label just like freaking out and like blowing up our phones because like they were like, why would you take Pusher to Fulton Mall? Like they were like concerned about their artist safety, and me and Pusher.
Yeah.
I was like, this is my man. We're at my house, like whatever.
Yeah. So and this is a great transition, right? You're basically jumping into what I was about to ask. All right. It's like how do you even choose these guys, right? So a lot of artists or said artists are getting these pictures. It's kind of like a cheat code, right? You just happen to be in the room and you're like, yo, real quick, dang, right? How are you choosing the people? Obviously with Pusher, you had a relationship because you're, the NERD thing, which we'll also kind of get into here in a minute, but very different for you, right?
The contents of the book is like a crossroads of my world. You know what I mean? It's like, especially with the first book, I wasn't really like chasing photos or like trying to get the picture. It's just like, when I was working at Billionaire Boys Club, people would come to Billionaire Boys Club to pick up clothes, and most of the time I'd be like, let me just take a picture real quick.
I need video evidence for my powers that be to show that you picked this shit up, or it was just transitioning, like just fuck it, let me get this in between. A little bit of both. Hey, he really did come to get this merch instead of trying to get a second
wasn't. It wasn't anything to do with like
BBC.
promoting Billionaire Boys Club at all. Yeah. It was just like whatever. It was like the end goal for me at the time was to take the picture, look at the picture and enjoy it, and then put it in a box that was in my desk drawer with the rest of the pictures. And that was the end. There wasn't let me make a book in a couple of years, or let me become a photographer or whatever. That was the furthest thing from my mind. And when I got introduced to the person who ended up being my editor at Rizzoli, I didn't follow up and go and show him the pictures. Like my man, Mark McNary, was like, Phillip, you should go show Ian your photos.
Yeah.
And I didn't go. And then me and Mark McNary both worked for Billionaire Boys Club at the time. Having nothing to do with us, that guy, Ian Luna at Rizzoli, ended up being Pharrell's editor when Pharrell started making books. Fast forward like 3 years, I go to Pharrell's wedding and end up sitting next to Ian Luna at his wedding. I don't know, dude. I walk up, I've only been on email with him. I walk up to him, I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm Phillip. He's like, you're Phillip with the Polaroids? And I was like, yeah, I'm Phillip with the Polaroids. Why didn't you come and see me? Because I feel weird about it, because I don't feel like I'm a photographer.
Yeah. Man. It's crazy. Like, how do you even, you gotta, like, I'm curious, and I know half the world doesn't know, and this was such a long moment ago, right? But how do you even, where did this onion even start, right? Like, how did you get to being a part of, Billionaire Boys? Like, and then, like, question within question, when we got out of the airport and we were waiting on the rental car, you're like telling me you were in a whole nother world of like rock bands and touring and wanting to be outside. Like, how did it turn into what's present day?
It all started from my first internship. And I got an internship when I got out of college. I got an internship. And, I was thinking about this when I was listening to some of your other podcasts. It's like you sometimes just sort of, figure out your moves as you go, and like opportunities present themselves and they lead to other things. And it's like,
isn't it wild? Like, if you really stay stuck with what the initial idea is, what doors you're restricting and can't go through?
yeah, and you can't really you can't plot it out sometimes. Like, there's like success stories that are like so one in a million, like right place, right time, and then this happened and whatever. So I was thinking about talking to you today and everything. It's like I got an internship in '94 at Rush Producer Management, which managed at the time like Diamond D and Large Professor and Easy Mo B. One of the first things I ever did in my professional career was do like the paperwork for Easy Mo B's studio sessions for Ready to Die. And Easy Mo B would come to the office and I'd be like, yo, how's this the studio, whatever. He'd be like, yo, big going crazy, talk about rings and watch filled with rocks. And like Easy would tell me lyrics that Biggie put down. And then now when I hear those lyrics on Biggie's records, I hear it in Easy's voice.
Yeah, it's bugged out.
And so when I had that internship, I kind of like ran. My first boss was Francesca Spiro, and she passed away a few years back. But I ran her office. I did the paperwork for the studio reports and filed union fucking forms and whatever. And then this other guy, young man, got down with her and her partner, and basically started taking her A&R meetings for her. He was managing some producers, and so his kind of arrangement with her was that he would go to her A&R meetings, play her producers, and then at the end of the meeting, he could play his beats, his producers' beats. He had found these two young men from Virginia named Pharrell and Chad, who were my man Rob's weird friends from Virginia, and would come and sit on the leather couch at Rush Producer Management and go to meetings with Rob and like whatever. Fast forward, Mercury buys half of Def Jam. Those offices are at Def Jam. So Mercury buys half of Def Jam, and immediately like all these little companies that are making this place cool gotta go. They don't pay rent. They're out of here. Damn. So first Francesca and Rush Producer Management gets removed. I moved down the hall and start working for Peter Thomas at How Can I Be Down, which was like a how to get into the music industry festival.
Like the starter kit.
It was wild. And then there was one guy left over from the Rick Rubin days of Def Jam named Heavy Metal Scott. Heavy Metal Scott got that nickname from the Beastie Boys. Scott also passed away recently. COVID got him. So Scott and I, because I'm from New York City, I was into hip hop because I'm from New York City. I was into graffiti. I was going to CBGBs and checking out hardcore shows. I was down with the Rangers and the Knicks. And
you were completely bought
shit,
into
right?
the New York moment. Yeah.
So me and Scott Koenig would talk about CBGBs because he was a heavy metal dude, which is like the sister of New York City hardcore. or the brother, or whatever. And one day Scott was like, "What are you doing after How Can I Be Down?" And I was like, "I'm gonna come work for you." He was like, "I was thinking the same thing." I was joking. He was like, "I was thinking the same thing," and I just got swept into a world of heavy metal, and ended up becoming a tour manager at a certain point. And Scott's bands were opening for Black Sabbath and Pantera and the Ozfest. It was like
Nuts.
it was like 97, 98.
Tell me you kept some of the merch.
Oh yeah, I have all the backstage passes.
Yeah.
Scott's band Fear Factory opened up for Black Sabbath 20th anniversary in Birmingham, England, for 3 nights at an arena, and it was crazy. You know, we're opening for Black Sabbath. While I'm swept away in this world of heavy metal, Pharrell and Chad are blowing up, and they're running the radio now, and I'm not paying attention to hip hop. Me and Heavy Metal Scott are in Fred Siegel's parking lot out here, and someone yells my name.
Nah, this story's fucking funny.
Someone yells my name. I turn around, and it's this dude who looks like a rapper. He's wearing jewelry. He's got a trucker hat on. He's wearing Cool Mo D glasses and a tracksuit. He knows my name. I don't know who this person is. He comes up. He asks me a couple. We have a real superficial hello. He keeps it moving. Scott's like, "Who was that?" I was like, "I don't know who that was. That was some rapper from Def Jam or something." I get back to New York, and I run into Rob Walker, who manages them.
I'm only laughing because I know where the rest of the story is, and it's great.
And Rob's like, "Yo, Pharrell said he saw you in L.A." I'm like, "Nah, I didn't see Pharrell." He's like, "He said he saw you at Fred Siegel." I'm like, "Oh shit, I did see Pharrell in L.A." And right around then, they got the deal with Star Trek at Arista. My man Loic was Khalees's tour manager. They called me. They were like, "Yo, can you finish this Khalees tour?" I had just finished one of the metal tours. I went on the road with Khalees for a couple months, and then that's when NERD started. And I was Pharrell's tour manager until I started working at Billionaire Boys Club.
So your Fred Siegel story with Pharrell, I laugh the way that I laugh because the amount of times I've had somebody that I've had serious conversations with, multiple interactions with, have been able to build, like, check in, and then completely space out. Time passes, and then they're in front of you, and you have absolutely no recollection. For me, it's happened. I don't know if it's the age, the dementia, or just I'm burnt, right? Like, it's one of those three that I fall under. So that's why I laugh the way, but it's amazing.
It's one of my downfalls, you know. And as advice, it's like,
I'm gonna give you. Let me correct that. I read on the internet, might be by AI, but these days, but it says sometimes you push out non-pertinent information to be able to absorb valuable information. So even though, in context, sucks that you kind of forgot what Pharrell looks like because he got a couple extra chains and bigger glasses. But hey, I mean, sometimes I look different too if the beard is longer and the dreadlocks aren't there and now I'm bald, but then I got curly, Puerto Rican fro kind of thing. So
yes, I think you're right in that you have to
forget to remember.
You only have so much memory space, right? But
can't upgrade
if
my hard drive.
I wish I could remember all the people I know. You know what I'm saying? Because I know wild people that I can when I remember, I know.
You'd be like multiple yellow pages throughout. You'd go from Southern Bell to Yellow Pages to Bell Atlantic to da 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 da, and
your network is your net worth.
Yeah. Tell them if they want to join the podcast while we're at it on this call right here, sis.
No, we don't want to get into it. Sorry, I thought I turned this.
No, it's cool, man. I need to. Everything just happened in the middle of this podcast. When keeping it real goes wrong, phone is not on silent. Uber's just walking right in, and no one caught him before he got to the door. It's cool. Would you like some of that cheeseburger I just ordered?
No. There's time for that later.
All right. So, where does I gotta ask? In what ways would you say Volume 2 is different from the first? Are there new themes, artistic approaches?
The cover.
Okay.
It's really just more of the same. It's really a second volume of the same stuff. Like Pharrell wrote the intro to both books. The cover, I basically just kind of flipped the colorway from, a dark cover to a light cover. I wanted to keep the same aesthetic. I really like the format of the book a lot. The second book has about 100 more pictures than the first book. It's really interesting. Like, I really hadn't looked through the first book in a long time before the second book came out, and then I started looking at both of them. And it's really cool. Like, one of the things that's cool about it is, like, you know, there's a lot of behind the scenes people, and there's a lot of people that, like, in the first book I caught young, like Scissors in the first book as like a teenager.
Yeah.
And then now she's like, you know, record
Award-winning.
breaking award winner, you know, global superstar on the front of the second book.
Crazy.
It's cool. So there's a lot you see people at different points in their careers and stuff.
And I know that that one means a lot to you because, you know, again, we've had a couple conversations and I've asked some of this stuff with the cameras not on, but are there any other moments that when you look at the lineage of Big Shot, right, that like the second you think of a moment that defines you or a memorable moment that you care about a lot, like outside of that one, is there another one that you could like, oh, it's a no-brainer? Like for me, when people ask me about a sneaker, for me, it's a no-brainer. It's what you got on, the Black Cement 3, right? Like that to me, every time is like, yeah, that emotion is not lost.
Totally. Lee Scratch Perry.
Okay.
I'm a big reggae fan, and I had like a couple special moments, like hanging out with him and like just being in his presence, and that picture came out so good. And George Clinton too, because when I shot George Clinton from Funkadelic, I was at a festival in Queens with Main Source. It was like a summer stage, like New York Parks Department concert.
Yeah.
With Main Source and Funkadelic Parliament.
Crazy.
In Corona Park in Queens. And shout out to Large Professor. He got me some backstage passes. And, you know, I was going there trying to get a picture of George Clinton. That was my goal. I got some other good pictures that day too. Grandmaster Vic, some other cats from Queens.
Yeah, our forefathers.
Yeah, and then I saw George Clinton sitting there, like, you know, probably like, whatever, 20 minutes before he was going on. And I walked up to him, I was like, yo, can I take your picture? You know, I said hi, and I was like, you know, can I take your picture? He just looked at me like, do I have to get up? And I was like, no, you can sit right there. He took the best picture. He looked so cool. And then when I posted the picture, his grandson, who runs his social media, saw it, and now we formed a relationship off that. And like, you know, I went and saw George when they played at Lincoln Center last summer. He signed my book, and like, you know, now I'm like, you know, kind of like connected a little bit with Funkadelic, which is like a legendary band for me. Like, you know, one of the things about, like, since I got the opportunity to do a book and like started actually like pursuing it as a project, you know, I've like put targets on people. Like, I really like to get that person. And you know, a lot of the time it's just like, you know, people I have idolized.
Mutuals, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really dope. We all have that one person that's in our circle that like sometimes, I know I have a bunch of them. Sometimes I can't believe that they're in my network or in my circle, and conversations really happen, and they're like real conversations, not this superficial bullshit that you're like, oh, I'm a fan and this and that, and like, right? And I've over the years I've talked and I've told you some, right? Like people that, like for me, that's like a Marshawn Lynch, right? Where like, you know, one time I'm stressed out to the point where like I'm having my anxieties kicking in because I'm short staffed and I can't, and it don't matter what I'm paying or saying. And he's like, oh, you need people? And he goes and gets his cousin, and his cousin starts working for me for years on end, right? And like, you look back and there's like things you might need help with, things that you might have questions about, things that you're like, I can't ask this guy this question, right? How did you ask Pharrell? Like, hey, I'm coming. How does the transition, how does the process of, I'm cool with Pharrell, I've worked with Pharrell, like, hey, Pharrell, can you write the intros to my book?
You know, the first one, whatever, that's family. And like, you know, Pharrell and I, like I said, we've known each other since before anything. Or,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, like Pharrell was like making music with Teddy Riley back then.
Right.
But, you know, he one time introduced me to somebody. He was like, Phillip knows, he said something like, Phillip knows us when we were just the Neps and we didn't even have tunes. And it's like, you know,
Crazy.
I can't remember who said this to me, but I kept it forever. And it's like squeaky wheels get oil. And if you want something, you got to ask for it. And I'm not shy about asking for things. And, you know, I know where I stand with most people and like what's okay to ask for and what's not. But like, I'm the type of person.
Did you second guess yourself at any point before you asked that question? Or like, did you have that? Yeah, nah, ask him. Nah, fuck that. I can't ask him.
I felt a little funny about asking him about the second one, and I asked a few other people before I asked Pharrell and didn't get any play, and like
Interesting.
I'm not gonna name any names, but in the front of the book it says, "Thanks to all those that helped, and for those that didn't, you know who you are." You know, it's like whatever. Sometimes you got to go through channels. And sometimes you can ask directly, right? And so when you go through channels, sometimes like those other people don't really know your relationship with who you want them to ask.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And they don't really ask the right way or whatever. Anyway, so with the second one, I asked a couple other people and I didn't get any action. So then I was like, fuck, I need a
Yeah, because you're running out of time for the deadline.
And so I asked Pharrell, he was like, yeah, no problem. But then it turned into a little bit of a problem, like getting him to do it. You know,
Yeah, because he's moving and he's moving.
He stays fairly busy. And so, you know, it took a little nudging, but at the end of the day, he came through.
Got you. So,
And was like, and it wasn't like I don't want to do it. It was just like, yeah, I'm gonna get to it.
yeah. Nah,
And then you got to go back and be like, yo, you get to that yet?
I've been on both sides of that, so I totally understand both sides of it. How do you hope that your Big Shot series influences perception of hip hop and fashion cultures? Because you're there.
You know, I hope that, I don't know if this is exactly what the right answer, but I hope that people take the time to like do the knowledge and like Google the people they don't know. Because like most everybody in that book is like a mover and a shaker.
They're fucking heroes, legends, superstars, and not from this
drivers
world.
of our culture. The
Yeah,
culture
pillars,
that we all,
pillars in our culture.
And so I hope it gives a little shine to like those people who kind of like are behind the scenes. It's like, you know, I don't go around telling like, I mean, you know, if I took your picture, right? Nowadays, I think almost everybody's in the book who I've taken a picture of. There's a few people
Who didn't make the cut?
yeah, but for the most part, if I take your picture, you're going in the book, especially now with the way the film is.
Yeah.
But I don't go and like, you know, send everybody an email like, yo, I just put out a book, you're in it. And so sometimes people don't even know they're in it. It's like, yo.
I think that's the best way to know that you're in it.
And then somebody tell them, like, yo, I saw you in a book. They're like, what?
Yeah. Nah, that's ill. Like, no one expects to be in a book, no matter how legendary they are.
But there's everybody in there is Googleable. You know, and like, everybody has a story and it's, you know, and it's like an influence in some way.
All right, so I got one last question for you. If you were to give me advice as an emerging photographer aiming to document contemporary culture authentically, what would that advice be?
I've been asked similar questions, and like I don't know, I'm the best person to be asking.
I think you're a great person to ask this question.
I think
it's just tough to give somebody. It's a question I gotta ask, but it's very tough to nail it down to one reply.
You know, you can't start out in like the VIP room. You can't start out in the VIP room. You have to start where you are, and you know where you are is a scene. And your scene might not be front page news right now, but you never know where the people around you are going. And it's like you have to work with where you're at and spiral outward. You know what I mean? And so you have to get in where you fit in and start doing it and taking the pictures and finding, something that speaks through your lens. Like photography is so. There's like two parts of it. It's like we could all take a picture of this bench, right? But your picture of the bench is going to be different than my picture, and one of them, some of them, are going to be more interesting than others to this subjective audience, right? Because you don't know what other people are going to take from any of this, from art too, paintings, whatever. And so you got to find something that comes out of you and then resonates with other people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really tough to get everybody to see it through your lens, and understanding your demo and your following and your consumer as an entrepreneur and as a creative is very, very difficult to figure out in the initial parts, man.
And you don't know where, you just got to start going, right? Because like I didn't know where I was going. Like I got that internship. I met Pharrell then. I went out this way. Was in a different world. Came back around. Was just doing something totally just for me, taking pictures at the same time I was working in the music industry and working in fashion with Billionaire Boys Club and stuff, and ended up with this thing that now has turned into something that's like kind of defining me a little bit.
Yeah.
And it all started from there. I owe so much gratitude to Pharrell for the opportunities that he provided and the rooms he put me in. And like,
But I think the thing more impressive to me, and yeah, listen, like I obviously I could sing song and dance about everybody that you mentioned, but the impressive part to me is that over the course of essentially 3+ decades, you have been given the opportunity to be in these rooms, and you haven't cooked it, walked in them wrong, had the wrong attitude, didn't really see you know what I mean? Like you never criticized in a way where like it was a no. You have found the yes every single time. And that in itself is a whole nother art and thing that is like very rare, man. So I'm thankful that you've really kind of allowed us to see, through your eyes what this looks like, man. And, just want to thank you for your time. End it on that. Appreciate you guys watching. Please give this dude a follow, buy one of them books. And the reason why we're both here, the real reason why we're both here is because we've been hanging out with Harry Blitzstein, because the play is a couple of months ago when I met Phil at Complex Con through Static Selector, and I sat down and I think we had a couple glasses of Crown and Coke there.
You know it.
And I just went down this rabbit hole of, so what the fuck do you do for a living? And then like kind of had so many questions, and the so many questions eventually left me with this thought, started following, started paying attention, started understanding, and said, to me, even though it might not make sense to anybody else, makes a lot of sense for you to help me make a book for Harry. Mm-hmm. So the goal is to drop a book. That's why we're here. And I look forward to being able to share that here through his eyes and my voice, man. So appreciate you guys watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.